with me. Take me back to yesterday. We didn't care for whom you pray. When streets were safe where children play. When life costs less since then we've paid. Take me back to yesteryear. When a fiver brought you crisps and beer. And you could hear the country cheer. For what we love, what we hold dear. Here it comes the rain again. Upon our island shore. Sometimes to keep the weather out, we must close our doors. Fly the flag and raise your hands. Make Britain great, make Ireland grand. Remember how it used to be. Now fly your flags and sing with me. Fly your flags and sing with me. Here it comes the rain again. Island shore. Sometimes to keep the weather out, we must close the door. Fly the flag and raise your hands. Make Britain great, make Ireland grand. Remember how it used to be. Now fly your flags and stand with me. We are part of history. Let's write the book for all to see. Let's make this chapter great. Carpe diem. Let's seize this day. Respect the place that you call home. Respect the land in which you roam. Respect the country you were born. Let's take it back. Respect reform. Hold on to freedom, hold on to hope. Don't give 'em slack, don't give 'em rope. Let's write the book for all to see. Let's make this chapter great. Carpe diem. Let's seize this day. Respect the place that you call home. Respect the land in which you roam. Respect the country you were born. Let's take it back. Respect reform. Hold on to freedom, hold on to hope. Don't give them slack.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 56 of A Conversation with Neil Stevens. We're broadcasting live from a secret underground bunker in the great city of Exeter. And tonight, Neil and Tony have some great topic to discuss with you. And they've got some great hosts, some great guests, rather. So without further ado, let me turn it over to our great host, Neil Stevens. Neil?
Yep, good evening. We're going to revisit the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, which is the LGR, after we know that Exeter has now won it. And we're also going to talk about Andy Burnham's new government. But first of all, I want to introduce Kevin Foster. I met Kevin Foster, show of Kevin Foster. I met Kevin Foster on Politics Southwest, and as soon as I met him, he's a legend, very knowledgeable. So my wife actually started chatting him up and managed to get him onto the show tonight. So welcome, Kevin. And then we have the legend, Michael Fife Cook.
Welcome, Michael.
And he gate crashed tonight, and I said, come on, and he took the bite, and he's here. So it's going to be an interesting conversation today. We're going to give more airtime to Kevin because I know that Michael and I can hug the show, but not tonight. It's all about Kevin.
Well, that's good to hear, Neil. It's great to be here. Great to join you. I must say, for an underground bunker, it's surprisingly light coming in.
Oh, shush! Don't ruin the
it's good. That's good. Good to be here. It's good to actually, Neil, be with you either not in a spotlight studio or stood in a sports hall looking at election counts.
Yeah, that was an interesting on-spotlight, though. I have to say, he defended me. Oh, and before we carry on, I just want to make it clear this is completely neutral. There's no parties and like that, and that's what we always agree because it's open to everybody. Tony.
And Neil, don't forget you're joined by another councillor, eh?
Yeah, Tony, go for it.
Well, yeah, you're joined by me as well, County Councillor for St Thomas and Exwick. So it's nice to see you all.
Hello, Tony Stevens.
Hello.
Okay, Neil, what's our topic tonight again, please?
Okay, local government reorganisation. Okay, and my wife's saying it's not live or what? Yeah, it should be live. Hang on,
Everything's
just
great.
on.
We got it going.
Yeah, we got it going. And we're going to talk about Andy Burnham again.
And we're going to make LGR interesting as well, because if someone's quickly reaching to that little button saying, oh, God, they're going to talk about councils and boundaries, I'm going to watch something else, you'll find it interesting. We'll tell you what it means for your council tax bill, what it means for your community as well.
That sounds good to me. But what we're going to start with is Tony.
Oh, sorry, yeah. I was there. Yeah, your voice matters. I can't see it. I just thought I'd tell you all this because it is live, Rob.
Go ahead.
I can't see it.
Okay, so basically...
All right, so your voice matters, look. I'm going to read from the script, look. So find us on Facebook or go on WhatsApp on 07355 429 205. We're on YouTube. You can go on messaging and make some comments, or you can go on Neil's email account, which is neil.stevens@devon.gov.uk.
Tony, you're an absolute legend. Now, guys, this is the time of night where we get some updates as far as what our great councillors and our friends have been doing. I assume that they're paid. Of course, Kevin, you're not paid yet by public taxpayer anyway. So who wants to kick it off first? Tony?
Well, I'll
what's
kick it
going
off
on?
first. Look, mine's going to be quite easy. We've had the patching team out, and they've been sort of repairing some of the roads, Litchfield Road, Kinnerdon Way, all been done. Priority patching, that's what it's called. Just came to me then. So those have been done. I've looked at a few holes in the road, reported them. And one of my pet hates, green boxes, be it Virgin or Open Reach. I've actually had a success and had 2 painted. And that's
Way
it.
to go, Tony. Yeah. Neil, how about you,
we're
sir?
going to pass to Kevin because it's all about Kevin
Okay.
today.
Hey, Kevin, what
Go
are the
for
hot
it.
topics in your patch?
Well, let's talk about the hottest topic of all, probably down in Torbay at the moment, is the future of the hospital. And actually, that has a resonance here in Exeter as well, because some of the proposals have been about moving services and patients from Torbay up towards the RD&E. And I suspect there's very few people listening to this who think that the RD&E has lots of time on its hands and plenty of capacity to deal with more patients from Torbay. And it started as the Heart campaign. And that started with a campaign against and I did a trial, and things always come down there as trials. It's a bit like that sign that says temporary road
sound good,
layout
this trial.
ahead,
Doesn't sound
and
good.
no one can remember it going up because it's been up there for decades. Anyway, they were going to trial the sort of trust in that for people and the ICB. You had a heart attack in Paignton. At the moment, you would go to Torbay Hospital for what's called PPCI, a treatment that heart attack patients generally have afterwards. And this is an emergency case. We're not talking planned treatment here. And instead, you'd drive past Torbay Hospital, turn left, and start your journey up to the RD&E, adding on average about 35 minutes to an emergency journey for a heart. So that's been huge. That proposal was dropped to then be replaced by the fact they were going to put a case for change for the whole cardiac service. And then they said they weren't going to do that one. They're not going to put forward a separate case for change. No, it's all right. What we're going to do is wrap it all up in our work around the entirety of the services being provided at the hospital. Well, it doesn't take much to work out. That isn't exactly the most positive announcement to have. So it's a really big one. There's a big campaign that's gone from being the Heart campaign to being the Save Torbay Hospital campaign. I have to say, cross-party, but a lot of support for it. People know my political background, and it's perhaps actually worth mentioning it. Some of the sadder news we've had the last couple of weeks, in fact, tragic news, was the fact that one of the big supporters of that campaign was Anne Widdecombe,
very
who came out and supported it. And I know lots of local people were very grateful to her for doing that. National figure, someone who, has occupied a senior office, his peers in the national media. She took the time out to come down to Torquay for a day or two to campaign on the future of the local hospital, and she deserved a lot better than what the end was.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, Neil, should we turn it over to your boss there? Ask him for an update. Is that okay?
Michael.
Right, what's been going on recently? Well, of course, as Anne Widdecombe has been mentioned, it's only fair to say that the police seem still to be a bit bemused by it all, and it looks that the person they've arrested this time won't go to court until next year. One has to surmise that's possibly because people or those in the know don't want this to be involved and being looked at political when we come to the election of the shadow unitary councillors. Besides that, I think there's been a lot of threats in the countryside. I don't know whether other people have felt this. There's obviously quite a few of our councillors have not been in a good place, where the threat level has increased quite considerably. I think that's really sad, isn't it? People want to represent their communities, and we end up in a situation where some of them are almost being hounded out simply because others don't like their politics. Not a good look at all. Other good news from my particular
and also,
area.
Mike, sorry to jump in, but also we don't want to get to a position where in politics and public life, the key requirement is to have rhino skin on your back. That's not where we want to get to, where actually your ability to put up with endless abuse is one of the key facets you need to have. And yes, there's always been an issue in public life with people taking things too far. But no, you're absolutely right. And it is the way, particularly I think what's come over the last few weeks is, this happened in a quiet part of rural Devon. And I can understand why then for some of your own councillors and those people who are visible, it's not that difficult to work out where a local council lives. You don't have the sort of security that's available to MPs, or certainly not that's available to ministers. And, you're right to be flagging it.
I think the problem is that as councillors, anybody in the public spectrum, I think, has to have a bit of a thick skin. You have to accept that people are going to argue with whatever political party or whatever your views are. The problem really is we tolerate that. But the problem is, as councillors, if you're a good councillor, one of my councillors has 29 parishes. So she goes out quite often to 29 parishes in a month. it would be very difficult for her to hide where she was at any particular time. And this is where the real problem is. In the last few years, it's topped over from just verbal abuse to now becoming physical abuse. And if we cannot expect people to work their best magic when they're under such pressure. Sorry.
No, carry on.
No. Oh, right.
And it's right. And I think the point you make, Mike, and it's the right one. It's one thing to argue, it's another to abuse. You know, that there are, you know, we could think of issues that we could all sit here and have a debate or argument about. We may have different views on there. But argument, debate is absolutely crucial. Abuse just undermines the whole process and actually is corrosive to democracy itself, because we just get to a point where it's who can be the most abusive that wins out. That's when democracy loses.
I've been very lucky. So I've only been a councillor for a year, and I know you've been in politics. How long?
Oh, I first got elected actually 24 years ago in Coventry, my first elected office, and I've been campaigning for about 30 years. And actually, do you know what? The vast majority of people, even when you knock the door of that, and you'll know a bit for yourselves, actually most people are polite. You'll get you know, the classic is, thanks for calling around, mate, but I'm a Labour voter. So, but, you know, thanks for your time. Okay, fine. I'm not going to, you know, I'm not a double glazing salesman. I'm not trying to get a foot in the door. So, okay, thanks for letting me know your thought. But, yeah, you know, that's how long I've been in it.
I've been very lucky, and I think, Tony, we get a few not so nice emails, but not aggression, just their political view, which I accept. And I'm always polite, so I never... And normally when somebody writes something back to, or I write back to them, they normally write back and say, oh, thank you very much. But let's keep to the updates, all right? So Dryden Road.
So it's me directing everything.
No, you can do that with
I'm
Dryden
talking
Road.
about Dryden Road.
No,
Nice try.
Dryden Road was a hot topic in, you know about the hospital, Dryden Road. I threw a spanner in the works, changed the motion around. It got voted 8-10. And then I want the TRO advertised. Well, I've wrote to different people in Devon County Council. I don't know why they're not advertising it now. It takes 3 weeks to write a small advert, which is the consultation period, but it's still dragging their heels right now. I get a feeling they don't want it open. But Ian Frankham's on it, I'm on it, and there's a lot of other people.
When you say 8-10, you mean 8-2, I think. 8 votes in favour, 2 against.
Actually voted for me. 8
Yeah.
voted for
Well
me.
done,
and 2,
Neil.
yeah, so that was quite good. Locality budget, we're spending that locality budget quite good. I'm bouncing them onto other councillors because the Devon and Dorset's Remembrance Day and the Christmas dinner, I'm asking them. So there's money being, you know, no councillor should have any money left by next February at least. So it should be spent on everybody else. Highways issues are interesting. We'll talk about the weeds. Another time I did freedom of information regarding why the weeds got stopped being dealt with in 2023. It came back. It stopped because of funding. They don't worry about the cosmetics. And I said, well, we're not worried about the way it looks. We're worried about the damage it's causing. I don't know what your area is like. What's your area like for weeds?
Weeds, well, at the moment, the weather's been doing quite a bit because, of course, you know, there's been
I love it,
days
don't
without any rain, you know, there's been, and then the heat. And I was talking to Torquay United about how much water they're having to use currently to stop the ground, the pitch
You're
literally.
not a football fan, are you?
I am, yeah, I am,
Oh,
yeah.
you
I must say, sorry, everyone, I'm from Exeter, you know, I'm a Torquay United fan. I do actually have shares in the club. So, you know, I know
Must
probably
be down at the moment,
there'll be a
then.
few Grecians thinking, oh, how dare he come on an Exeter
Must be
podcast.
down at the moment.
Well, we got the Grecians coming on the 31st. Actually, appreciate the support of a friendly each season. It does help the club. But yeah, weeds. There's a bit. But when we took, well, they probably took control in 23 in Torbay. They got shot of the No Mo May. Because basically what was happening was the place was just looking like a jungle. And we also have, what's really great though, if you're driving into Torbay, have a look out for the robo-mowers. Because on the roundabouts that can get really overgrown.
What's a robo-mower?
What is a robo-mower? It is a robot mower. And because, of course, it's not easy and it can be quite dangerous for staff to go and cut grass around things like roundabouts.
Does it like walk around and stuff?
It literally just it literally goes round the roundabout, automated, and back to its little house for a charge every so often. And you know, it literally just go. You know, I think they're thinking about doing a little competition for naming them and things like that. You know, for the
Does it have
kids.
sick leave and holiday?
And it just like it's basically a big version of what you might see a robo vacuum cleaner for home. Really, but actually, the serious point on a safety point of view is it means that throughout the summer you've got key junctions, the grass is down. You don't have a roundabout where there's just suddenly just a bank of weeds you're looking at, and then cars coming round it. So it sounds all great fun. It's good for the aesthetics of coming in, but it has a serious purpose in that you're not having to shut a lane of a busy road just to try and cut a bit of grass as well.
Well, I spent the whole morning with Roger. Thank you, Roger. Looking at potholes, looking at different things, markings, double yellow lines, and it was productive. Michael.
Well, as you butted in before I'd finished,
I apologise. By the way, what we do is when somebody wants to talk, we just put a hand up.
Well, that's what I did.
And then that's it. So right, Michael's just learning the ropes.
I can't help if your mind is elsewhere. Okay.
This is not a wrestling contest. Just put your hand up.
Yes, sweet. Yeah. I think the other thing that's quite important, which people would be interested, is on Dartmoor. I'm very fortunate to be on the board of Dartmoor. Is that we've saved the ponies. They're not going to be culled. I remember back, God, I'm not going to tell you because I remember, people will know how old I am, but I remember back when there used to be somewhere almost 20,000 ponies on Dartmoor. And that number has come down to just over 1,000. It puts the genes of the ponies in doubt, really, because otherwise what we'll end up with is inbreeding. This is just another stupid idea because people put them into the class of sheep and cattle as if they were grazing animals. Well, of course they are, but they're basically semi-wild. And of course it was costing farmers money because it meant that the commoners, they're only allowed to put so many animals out on the moor, but the ponies, in essence, to cut a long story short, do a tremendous amount of good for Dartmoor. They keep down a lot of the grass which damages Dartmoor, and to be perfectly honest, it's what people expect. It's like the New Forest ponies. So that's a good win, to be perfectly honest.
You don't think it was more of a political gimmick because a party jumped on it, then another party jumped on it, and then somebody took the credit for it, but then there was a group of ladies and gentlemen from Dartmoor who actually.
I think, to be
because
perfectly honest,
every party seemed to have jumped on it.
Well, it would do because it's. I think something like that is so important to people. It's I looked the other day when I was driving across to Dartmoor Park to a meeting, and normally I see 20, 30 ponies, and I must admit I really looked for them, and I must have seen over 200, 300 ponies on the moor, and the problem is sometimes this is where we really have problems. If we are going to look at net zero and we're going to look at conservation, we have to be extremely careful. We have to understand that conservation, our idea of conservation, is not really conservation. The fact is Dartmoor would not be Dartmoor without the farmers, the hill farmers. It wouldn't be Dartmoor without the people who have lived there for generations, or the animals that have lived there for generations. If people come in, and I love people coming into the countryside because it's great, but the fact is you've got to come in with an open mind, and you've got to understand everything interplays with everything else.
What do you have to say about that, Neil?
Then you've got problems.
What I've got to say is we've got to stick to a timeline, and we're going to go why we brought Kevin on.
I'll just give Mike a clap though, because I agree with his point.
Fountain of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Fountain of knowledge, Michael. And I'm sorry because I could listen to you all day, but not tonight. Yeah.
What is our topic tonight, Neil?
So the topic tonight, right? The biggest change in decades is going to happen, and it's going to happen to Devon. And actually having Michael and his views on, because he represents Dartmoor and that outer area, Kevin coming on, who's very knowledgeable, we're going to discuss it. So Devon's biggest change. Now, a lot of people do not realise, okay, LGR, Local Government Reorganisation. Why is it happening, Kevin?
Well, there is currently the two-tier structure in Devon. So you've got Devon County and you've got the districts below it, Exeter City Council being one of those districts. And then you've got the unitaries bolted on, which are Plymouth and Torbay. And just an interesting little factoid, I actually attended the last Devon County meeting that covered Plymouth and Torbay and had members from those two areas on it back in 1998. So I've almost sort of seen this issue come back about 30 years, later. So government, late 2024, Angela Rayner, when she wasn't trying to work out how to not pay stamp
Pay your
duty.
tax.
Now back, of
Has
course.
she actually sorted that out?
Yeah, I think I understand it has been
Or
sorted
she's paid
out.
it, or it's got squashed?
Oh, you'll have to probably check through. I think.
But
I think-
Kevin, she's been rehired and she doesn't want to give away her £16,000
Yeah,
severance pay, I understand, right?
Yeah,
Remember,
of course.
we've got to
yeah.
be. We're not picking on individuals.
Yeah,
Just
of course,
broke
we're
our
not
own
picking on
rules then.
individuals.
today.
Started
You
it.
know, and
No, he started it.
No,
You have to be neutral.
anyone could make that mistake. I'm sure she'd say exactly the same if it was a member of Reform, the Conservatives, or the Lib Dems. I'm sure she'd be just as understanding. Oh, she wasn't. Anyway, so look. So wanted to say, right, all councils that are still 2-tier, go to 1-tier, and rather than work constructively, give people the opportunity, it was all going to be done, basically done, dusted within about 3 years on a short timescale. Everyone also, by the way, also having to put up the other idea for mayor as well. Just if you fancied having a mayor, and if you didn't, well, you don't have a mayor anyway, so you have that as well. So, with the last couple of years, councils have been working on plans, and I think a lot of people listening won't be greatly surprised to hear that there were, I think, 5 plans consulted on earlier this year for how Devon could go unitary. And, as luck would have it, apparently the plan that was devised by the 2 Labour-led councils, backed by the
Pardon?
3... But by
was a bit lucky, wasn't it?
Two
the 2
Labour
Labour-led
Yeah.
councils.
That was quite lucky.
Yeah,
Surprise,
backed
surprise.
by the 3 Labour MPs, just happened to be the right plan, according to the
Amazing.
Labour minister. Absolutely amazing that. But then
Amazing.
again, Steve Reid, a couple of weeks back, says, well, less than 2 weeks ago actually, says, I'm going to, actually only a week ago, I'm going to abolish all these councils in Devon. And then on Monday, Andy Burnham abolished him. So we'll see. So what is this? Basically, this is how we move to have a unit, just one council rather than county and district. I think it's something that, I'm going to put hands up and say that it's perhaps something that prior to 2024, there should have been more of a discussion about, how would it be done? Because it's unsurprisingly, and it's probably the outcome that's come out, for Exeter becomes a larger unitary, similar to Plymouth. For Torbay, wanted to stay the same, but has been told, no, you're going to have to expand. Plymouth is expanding out as well. Then I think the real challenge, we're interested in Mike's view on it, is then for the rural area, what's left. Because that's the best way of describing.
Concern, yeah.
That's the best way of describing the 4th council is what's left. You've got areas around Torbay with an urban hub and reasonably coherent when you look at it. You've got Exeter, reasonably coherent, although I suspect there's a lot of people in Budley, Exmouth,
Well, I didn't
and
realise
Dawlish.
Dawlish, yeah.
Dawlish,
That was a surprise.
And but yes, better. Dawlish comes in with Exeter, Timoth goes in with Torbay. So, you're going to see a local government boundary through the middle of those 2 towns.
Neil?
Yeah, guys, ask questions. We've got Kevin here. He's bent over backwards. He's redone his schedule for us. I want questions coming in. And to Michael, any questions you want to ask, get them into us. We've got people watching, but no questions asked. But still, I'm going back to the question: why is it happening?
Well, why it's happening is because ultimately the government's decided they want to do it. They want to push ahead with it. And there is a political advantage there to them, I suspect. They'll see the Exeter Unitary as one that they could potentially win. And
Which
at the moment,
could potentially lose.
they could potentially lose as well.
But the reason I say that, Kevin, you've got 49 parishes.
Yep.
Okay, they've got no Labour Devon County councillors,
That's true.
which if they wipe it
And of
all
course, they
out,
lost their majority in May
They
as
lost
well.
that.
Well, there we go.
On
So
the
then it
smaller
could-
city, yeah.
we're talking about boundaries, and we don't know the boundaries. We don't know how many councillors. Will they keep the councillor boundary, the ex-city councillors, and just expand their boundaries, or once you go around the rural areas, they're not Labour
Yeah.
people.
No, you're going to see some very different areas being seen together. Although I think the one that's really weird is the rural council that's been called Rural Rest of Devon, because for example, you live in Axminster, you'll be part of that council. You live in Salcombe, you'll be part of that council, and if you live anywhere in North Devon, you'll be part of that council. Yet, for example, I was using the other day was that someone in Axminster in future writes to their council saying, "What are you doing about the bus service to Exeter?" And they write back saying, "Well, actually, we don't cover Exeter, but if you want to ask me about the bus service between Tavistock and Oakhampton, I'm your man."
I think the fact is as well, I think we have to be realistic. I don't want to mention politics because it gets grubby, doesn't it? But the simple fact was that this has happened literally to destroy what the Labour government think were Tory parishes, the shires. And because they knew that they wouldn't be able to expand, people in the countryside very, very rarely vote anything except Tory, Liberal Democrat, and now Reform. They're very unlikely to vote Labour. The cities have decided that the best way to increase the revenue is basically steal as many of the wealthy shires as humanly possible. And that's what they've done. And I know that there will be Exeter City Councils and Plymouth City Councils who will be very pleased about this, because they'll suddenly think that they're going to have a green light to be able to build as many houses as they want, and they think that'll bring the infrastructure and they'll bring money into their areas. The real problem comes with the rural areas. It wasn't that long ago we lost £10.1 million as a rural delivery grant, and the reason we had that was the simple fact is it's common sense. If you live in the middle of nowhere, it's much harder to deliver a service to you. It's much harder to get your children to school. It's much harder to get your old people into the doctors. We all understood that. But the government doesn't like rural areas, never has, because they've never been able to control it. They've never been able to centralise the power. Now we have a situation, and I think this is much more important than anything else. And I remember when we first started talking about LGR, and I talked to the leaders at the time, and I said to them, you must not look at your area. You must realise you are all part of Devon. And if we're not careful, what we're going to end up is with a massive great area with the same amount of people as, say, in Exeter, but how are you going to deliver services to these people?
Those are some great points, Michael.
Yeah, I've
Neil?
got a question come out for you, Kevin, from Ian. Kevin, what sort of relationship, influence can a constituency MP have over or with the leader of the current DCC?
What they can have is, I used to meet quite regularly with my council leaders, even actually when they were different parties, that you can't, as the local MP, let's be clear on the local MP, the government's got certain levers it can pull, and it's pulling one in terms of abolition. But in terms of what an MP can do with the local council leader is you can meet with them, you can engage with them, you can work with them constructively. A lot of times I'd find there would be a reasonable response, at least a respectful response to queries you raise. It has to be said, though, the MP cannot tell the local council leader what to do. That's the one thing it's worth noting. You know, councillors are, as evidenced, elected on their own mandates. You know, you can tell that you're quite entitled to tell the local MP to go, to go forth if you wish to. But that's where, if you can be, you don't see control, but you can work together. And I've found that usually, and of course there's a quid pro quo, the council will want issues raised at Westminster, will want to be able to lobbying with ministers and others, and particularly as I was an MP who was in government, you do have an opportunity to grab hold of ministers and that may be making decisions in relation to the council in a way that realistically the council just can't do, because you're at Westminster and you can see them.
Right. The question is, who pays the price?
Wow.
So who pays the price? Because I'll just show this right now. When I did a LGR with Bindu, which is the CEO of Exeter City Council, the question was, I said, she quoted 70. I've heard it's between 50 and 100. Let's just cut it down to £80 million. And that's changing the branding, changing all your T-shirts, the signs, the IT, £80 million roughly. And they haven't got £8 million, Kevin. They're going to borrow it. So who pays for that?
Well,
you got the buildings. Is everything going on?
It's going to be the taxpayer. Look, the Exeter and Plymouth bid, which is the one that fundamentally the government accepted, estimated implementation costs at £70.1 million. Now, if there's anything I've seen in the public sector, is you always know that cost estimates really go down when they're implemented. And let's remember, there's a lot of redundancy cost in that, because you will see certain senior officers made redundant. There's not going to be as many chief executives, for example. Now, people might sit and listen to this thinking, well,
going to be transfer costs.
Who cares?
They're going to be highly paid civil servant, or highly paid
you're going to have
workers, and there won't be highly paid jobs, but they'll be paid highly paid, even though they're not senior anymore. Really.
Well, contract innovation. Let's say the new Exeter will have 4 different bin services on the first day it starts.
Yes.
Because if you think about it, 4 different districts, including obviously Exeter itself, are coming together to form a new unitary. So you've got 4 different bin collection services, some of which will be sort of quite disjointed because they, you don't plan them on parish basis, you plan them on the basis of your overall district and service area. So you've got that, you've got a lot of staff work, and there is some direct costs. So for example, Torbay's got, I think at the moment, the lowest average council tax bill. And it's lower than its neighbours. So people say, oh yeah, but my council tax bill goes up every year. Yeah, but you'll find not only could it go up by a maximum 5%, but add on to that an averaging effect. So if you're an area that's got slightly lower council tax bills, you're surrounded by an area that's got slightly higher ones, and then LGR happens, what happens is the area that's lower gets slightly averaged up and the area down. So some will actually see physically their bill go up directly as a result of this process, as well as the bill. Now, they say there's going to be savings, but, I've seen plenty long enough in politics in the public sector to see that, apparently the savings are going to come later, the costs come now.
Come later, yes.
Yeah,
That's
and
the wording, isn't it?
and Somerset hasn't exactly had a blemish 3 record since it went unitary, and that was actually simpler. That was just one where the districts combined with the county to form a unitary authority. But they've had numerous financial issues since. So the idea this is just like an easy, we get rid of a couple of senior managers, cut some bureaucracy out, and then it's all brilliant. We all save lots of money. Far from it.
Yeah, and also you're going to have one section like Devon County Council may have an outsourced contract with a private provider, whereas Exeter City Council might have an insource with direct providers. So you're going to have to rationalize that. Go out to tender for a new contract or bring the existing contract in-house. It's very complicated. It's going to be very costly. Do you agree with that, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. And all this at a time when local government's facing plenty of challenges. You look at the issues around children's social care. You look at, we talk about it in a national context, the number of things like mental health and other issues and worklessness. Well, of course, councils play quite a role in helping tackle some of that. But instead, we're going to have probably the best part of about the next 2-3 years, mostly spent talking about council boundaries, who works for who, chooping people, sorting out contracts. As you say, some Exeter has more of attrition potentially of being, as does Plymouth, a little bit more of being in-house than some of the districts, and Torbay does. So you've seen a lot of argument going on that actually, when you get down to it, isn't going to be isn't delivering a better service, isn't saving money. It's actually just sorting out a structure that's been sort of welded together.
We just talked about the rubbish contract, but that ripples through to every other service that Exeter City Council and Devon County Council provide, really, how they rationalize those. It's extremely complicated, extremely risky. And Ian made a comment recently, I think it's well-founded. They're going to pull one of the framework consultancy providers because it's extremely risky. They've got to make sure it comes off correctly. And those consultants are not paid, they're paid a lot of money. So I don't think they know how much money they're going to spend. Neil?
Michael?
I think this was all sold to us as from the government that we were going to make massive savings. And obviously everybody wants to make savings. But the problem is what I think we fundamentally have to get back to is, what does a councillor do? Our jobs are different. You make the regulations, you make the laws basically, and we have to follow them. The problem is councils really, at the end of the day, we're there to do the minutiae and the mundane. We're there to empty the bins, make sure the buses run on time, and obviously make sure the streets are repaired, plus numerous other things. So they're always trying to make savings. The problem is if we're not careful, we end up in a worse position than we were, and because we're trying to redevelop the wheel. And that's the real problem here. We are looking at spending vast sums of money. We look at just at Devon County Council at the moment, and if you look at the number of our officers and how much time they're spending on LGR alone, they've already spent a fortune on the plans that were sent to the government and were totally thrown out. But we now have massive things that were supposed to be done by our council, hopefully this year, that have had to be shelved because they're having to look at redesigning contracts, where all this stuff. And you have to ask yourself, if we're not going to save any money, who is this benefit? And I don't think it's benefiting really the people it should.
Yeah, just Ian, we will answer that question about Transport Minister in a minute. Karen, good to see you. Douglas, we'll come back to you. Tina, both of you. Paul, we'll come back to you. And Jenny. So we've got a few questions. We're going to bounce to you in a minute. I want to stay on the subject because I don't want to go off. Right. So the next, show us the evidence. And what I'm saying, Kevin, now is, we're talking about why we change him. I call it a power grab.
A land grab.
A land grab and power, soft power. All right, because they haven't got any Devon County councillors. Oh, what a shame. So I'm looking at savings. Is there a business case? Has anybody seen a business case? If you're going to start a business, you normally do a business case.
Yeah.
And these questions, financial modelling and also the risk. So would you say this is going to save money, or would you say it adds more layers and more money? And, that £80 million, which they have got to loan, which we have to pay back, we, not them. And they already, you already said about 10 million building, Exeter City's track record, isn't that brilliant?
Well, it's actually worth noting that Exeter City, East Devon and Devon County combined in terms of looking at LGR, I've already spent 1.1 million quid. Just to get to this stage. Well, actually, nothing's changed.
Doing what?
At all. And that's around things like preparing their business cases, getting consultants in, lawyers, because of course they have to start looking at contracts and things like that.
I want some of that. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So already 1.1 million's already gone on this process. If anyone's listening thinking, oh, it's not really started yet. Well, you're right, but you've already spent about 1.1 million has gone. And whilst a lot of that will be funded partly by the government, you do sit the thing that's still taxpayers' money, it's still money that's come out of tax. So yeah, there are what's called business cases that have been put up, and if you went through them purely, the cheapest option was fundamentally to merge the districts into the county. But even then, that was about 40 million of cost. So cheap. Does a bit of heavy lifting in terms of that description. But is there evidence there? And as I've just touched on, we saw Somerset, which combined into a unitary and did it over at its own wish, at its own pace, over a slightly longer period. This is the difference. Other unitarisations have mostly been where the county and the districts have approached government saying, yes, we'd like to do this. And a lot of times that'll be timed because there's, for example, service contracts, things coming to an end, or there's a logical reason to do it. This one's been very much, no, you're all going to go and you're all going to happen at the same time. And also in terms of the points just made around consultants, there's only so many people who understand this area. So the fact that there's a large number all doing this at the same time, that almost inevitably is going to mean the costs of doing it go up, because people who know what they're talking about and can do some of this work, or of course there's a certain number of them, there's now going to be a big demand. Well, how do you match supply to demand? Price. And you could easily see it become more costly because there's so many at once. So they say they've been modelling, they say stuff there. I'm always sceptical because, having spent a very brief period of time as the HS2 minister, a few weeks, that was a classic example. No, it's all right. This is roughly what we think. Oh, yeah, all the experts. Well, we know where that project is now.
Kevin, I've spent since 1997, I've been with the NHS, and some as a consultant, some working for the NHS. But give an example of about 15 years ago, I was sitting in my office in the procurement department, and a youngster came in. He just graduated from university, really great young man. And he was working for KPMG. And he came in for a green energy audit back then, okay? And that KPMG charged him out at £1,400 plus VAT, just for 1 day's worth of work. So you're exactly right. To get somebody in to manage such a risky and complicated process as this, it's going to be very expensive, and we have to find the right people, actually.
We'll go past to Michael. We're a little bit behind schedule, but carry on, Mike.
Okay, I'll keep it short. Don't you think, though, that we saw this from the beginning, because when all these plans were put forward for boroughs, district areas, whatever, 541, whatever, each part of that plan, they had to damn everybody else's plan. They had to say, well, that's not financially viable. And to me, that said that, if you're going to do a plan, surely you'd be looking at a plan and saying, well, there are certain parts that we could make benefit of this. But if you're also having to strive to destroy everybody else's plan, where is the logic? Where is the common sense here? And that's what really gets me, is we've wasted all this money. And, as a county councillor, we are continually told on a regular basis we haven't got any money.
Yeah.
And that's a sad part.
And I think, Mike, people try to engage with this in good faith. But I can remember about a year ago when, the discussions were starting to be had, and we said, we'll put up cases. And I went, guys, don't delude yourselves here. At the end of the day, and you hit the nail on the head earlier, Mike, a lot of this is targeting places, Labour government targeting places that they ain't going to win normally, but where there's perhaps pockets within that they do. Like normally they've won in Exeter. And I went, I'll put money on it. It doesn't matter what the numbers say. It'll be the Plymouth and Exeter that will go forward. And surprise, surprise, here we are a year later. What a surprise! Who knew that would be the outcome? But it's been, and ditto. You can look at Norfolk, where Norwich is expanding out into a ring. You can look at, I think Suffolk's another one. I think Suffolk's taking reform-led council that's taking legal action because, as they say again, Ipswich, but the most expensive options seem to be the ones being taken, where you cannot get away from the idea that really. So it's a nice little carve around.
Neil, did you want to jump in on this one?
Benefit?
No, I'm going to pass to Tony. Tony's one of his he cuddles his adult social care. Tony.
Yeah, adult social care, which I don't know if anyone's aware of. It's just under 80% of our budget that's actually in Devon, and of course
for Devon County Council.
Well, in Devon County Council. But with
that's
LGR
amazing.
coming up, it has to be a seamless move in 2 years' time or just under, where Exeter and the other authorities as well have to do a seamless move where it all goes and carries on as normal. So I don't know what your feelings are on that, or whether you think this is an easy thing to do.
Well, it's a real concern because Torbay had the integrated care service, which had been running for about 20 odd years, and a few months back, the NHS had voted to pull out of it. So you're going to have this going along alongside the integrated care service being sort of pulled apart in Torbay area as well. It's difficult, and this is what really also brings up, by the way, the rural area, because everyone instantly be thinking of chocolate box villages across. That's your image. It's not. As Mike will know all too well. Some of the most deprived parts of the southwest will be in this rural council. Add on the costs of trying to deliver it. Add on some of the age demographic parts of it, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that rural who'll be living in it. That's not how I view you, but it's what obviously the government's decided. How that's going to be able to sustain providing effective adult social care services.
Can we just bring this back to Tony for a second? And Tony, could you explain just the fundamentals, since it's 80%, what are the key elements in adult social care?
Well, we can sort of forget about SEND for now because that's totally separate again. But with the adult social and childcare, it's looking after the children, the adults, the ones that need 24-hour care, who need the carers going in and all that. So that the problem is, it's all going to get into control of the 4 unitary councils that will be doing all this. At the moment, it's controlled by Devon. They look after it. But this has to be a seamless move when it's actually done and the unitary authorities start working together or working, because if it's not, people will suffer.
I'll give you an example of, excuse me, Kevin, of the cost. I can't fathom the 80% of the cost, but practically how one element of it is, I have a friend that worked in for a local care organization, and he would have this little app of different jobs that you could go to, and he went to one job consistently where 2 workers supported one person round the clock in the person's home. Can you imagine the annual cost of having 2 people 24/7? So, I don't really know what 80% of the Devon County Council budget is, but it must be horrendous.
79%.
Yeah, I said just below 80.
Kevin.
Yeah, the example I was going to give, so you're talking about that example of 2 around the clock. People wonder, how can it get so expensive? And I'm happy to use my father's example. He sadly passed away last month, but he was in a nursing home.
Last month?
Yeah, on 1st of June, yeah. He was in nursing care for 4 years, and his monthly bill, even after the £1,000 NHS contribution we got, was £7,000. So it's when people say, how can you be spending so much on social care? So, well, if people think about that example of how much is being spent, and if you're below a certain level of assets, which, £7,000 a month you can very quickly get to, unless you're particularly wealthy, that's how these sort of bills really. And of course, we know that the biggest growth in population sort of percentage is about over 85s. And it's not over 65s, it's over 85s that really drive. And there's plenty of parts of Devon that have got big. And it's across that. Of course, Mr. Burnham says he's perhaps going to look at trying to find ways of funding this better. But I think, I've been involved in politics 30 years. I've sat through about 3 different governments that were going to definitely sort this all out.
Well, that's his
different
10-year
political
plan,
views.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Michael, what are you going to say?
I think the fact is we ought to keep in mind as well. I lived in Dartmoor now for, I think it's nearly 45 years when we came down. The demographics in the villages was totally different than it is today. The demographics now is the majority of people are in retirement age. We don't have young people anymore. So we don't have people who are going to cut the grass. We don't have shops anymore because most people don't shop in the village anymore. The garages are closed. So we end up where the shutters are pulled down at 6 o'clock every night. If we don't change our attitude, how we're going to treat people in the countryside, what we're going to end up with is basically dormitory villages waiting for people to die. And that is not acceptable. People deserve to have a quality of life. And just because you live in the countryside doesn't mean you shouldn't have the ability to be able to get into a local town, have somebody come and look after you if you're unwell.
Thank you, Michael.
Right,
Neil,
so
you want to jump in on that?
We have to go a little bit quicker because I want to go on to Andy Burnham and really pick your brains. So my biggest concern is the LGR is children's services and SEND. I'm learning every day. I've had some successful cases. I can't mention people's names or the children, but we've been pressurised in different organisations and we've had a very good results out of 3 of them. Also, highways, and I'm sorry to rush this, highways, infrastructure and all that, we've got to be looking at that. We're handing it over to Exeter City Council. To me, let them stick to doing the parks and the pavements and the parks, the homelessness and the dustbins.
Well, they're going to start doing potholes now, Neil.
No, well,
and the weeds,
well,
right?
I have to take my hat off to Dan Thomas, who's the
He's
portfolio
the
holder.
portfolio
He works well with us. We're in communication, so well done, Dan. And we're going to skip now to answer a few questions here because I don't want to lose them. Jenny has basically said, say no to LGR, it doesn't need to happen. So they're cutting democracy and not taxes. They better not muck up SEND school transport, which I'm part of the appeals. I'm really all over that. Of course, they will rob everything we get messed up. Have you heard of National Residents for Civic Accountability? That's a good question. Have you heard of that?
It's not one I've directly heard.
Okay, we'll chat about that afterwards. I like the chat, but missed the intro. What's his name, please? Kevin, give Jenny who you are.
Hello, Jenny. Kevin Foster. Used to be over in Torbay. Myself and Neil regularly find ourselves at election counts and on political shows having a debate. So.
And what I will say, he's a legend. You talk to him. My wife chatted him up and got him onto this show in a nice professional manner. And
not what you told me.
No, there's some other questions here. Bear with me. Nice to see you, Michael. Mick Cochran, well done. Paul, is this the ultimate payback for our fellow citizens who chose not to vote? Somewhere I read, as you sow, so shall ye reap. It seems that the last chance saloon is the shadow council. Good point on that. And before we finish at the end, I have a little bit of an announcement to make. For the May 27, I know you want to get on with it. Ian, you've asked Kevin, you're a transport minister and also MP in Torbay, and I wish you were still. You're more than most will understand our rail infrastructure is so vulnerable at Dawlish. What do you think is the most sensible long-term solution to protect this lifeline into South Devon, Plymouth and beyond? That's off the subject, but we're going to let him answer that.
Yeah, very quickly. I think that if even Brunel didn't fancy putting a tunnel through Holden, then that's probably very unlikely to happen. The most practical thing is to look at work around Teignmouth, the next phase, to secure the line. That will mean moving it slightly away from the cliffs, because it's the cliffs actually that the biggest threat. If they move and went across the line,
it's not the water then, the sea coming in.
Water at Dawlish thing, but it's behind, basically, without getting too off topic because our chairman's guidance, so to speak, but it's the cliffs behind at Teignmouth. If they move, and they moved significantly, partly by the sea as well, reinstated, then that could cover the railway line and make it very difficult to reopen. It would take quite a bit of time. So that's probably the key thing at the moment to it. So it is about extending it, expanding it. And also let's remember the reason why it was kept open isn't just because it's a pretty view. You know, Beeching shut down plenty of railways that had very nice views. It's because it is probably the logical going through communities and supplying and serving them for the railway.
Okay, Neil.
Right, we're going to go on to my favourite topic. Andy Burnham, vision. Where does the money come from? And do you know what? I don't think we need any guidance on this. So going to you, your vision. I'm going to go to you. Right, so Andy Burnham, we already know that he was the mayor. He then went in and became an MP. And then all of a sudden, God, I wish I had that job description. I wish I could be a T-boy and then jump to be the boss. Okay, all of a sudden. But on that, Kevin, I want your opinion first about not the individual. We're not talking about the individual. We're talking about his vision.
Yeah. Well, it'd be great if he actually really sets it out sometime soon.
It's a bit unclear, isn't it?
Yeah, we've had plenty of vibes. We know he's a fan of buses. You know,
He loves U-turns already.
Yeah, and he's wasn't, and for some reason it was going okay, but it was obviously therefore desperate to cause two by-elections costing the thick end of £5 million to the taxpayer to bring him into Westminster because it was going so well.
What do you mean 5 million?
Right, so first, the parliamentary by-election cost about £250,000 to put on and administer. But now, at the moment, there is a Manchester mayor by-election going on, which isn't just one constituency. You're talking the whole of Greater Manchester voting. That's estimated to be costing about £4.7 million. I'm sure, I know we're not being political today, I'm sure when you next have a cost of another by-election thrown at you, you'll be only too happy to point that one out to certain Labour politicians, how much settling their leadership has cost the taxpayer in the form of two by-elections. So
yeah, I didn't realise that.
yeah,
I forgot about that.
whole of Greater Manchester is having a vote because Andy Burnham stood down. So, but in terms of his vision, look, it's probably refreshing to have someone who actually, you know, is better than Keir Starmer. And I was delighted to see the back of Lord Hermer, which was a particularly welcome Jerry Adams' lawyer, as people may better know him, from the cabinet. But there is all the questions are there about, you know, you can win on vibes, but you can't govern on them.
Yeah.
You've got to start setting out what your plan is, how you're going to pay for it. You've got to start making some serious choices. And I would say I would slightly disagree. Being a big mayor isn't necessarily about being the T-boy, Neil. You know, I think, for example, of Andrea, for example, or Andy Street, who were mayors who do drive agendas and do make decisions. But you know, we're great to hear, you know, any particularly strong choices from Andy Burnham. The cool thing is, lovely what he's announced the last day or two. How's he going to pay for it? That question has been asked.
That's how we're going to pay for it. Not
yeah,
I'm
how-
wondering about two of the cabinet choices, one of which is Angela Rayner, who is the housing minister, but she conveniently didn't pay her tax bill. And then the second one is this man that told a reporter that Trump was a misogynist, racist, bigot or something like that. And now Burnham makes him the foreign secretary. I'm looking forward to the first meeting that Trump has with him. He's going to chew him out, chew him alive.
Well, what I've always said, Michael, your turn first, and I'll come after you, sir.
I think it's quite sad, to be perfectly honest. You know, here we are, a nation of 70 million people, and we seem to go through prime ministers at a fair old rate, and nobody inspires us, do they? The fact is that everybody in the Labour Party, and I'm sorry to mention that, but we can move forward and hopefully make it a better nation for
Thank
the
you,
next
Michael.
generations.
I've got a question for Kevin. Isn't part of the fundamental of Andy's vision is to devolve a lot of the decision making down to local level. And if that's true, then how is that going to happen without the ability to raise funds in order to achieve that goal?
Yeah, you're right. We'll probably be seeing the powers, and I'm someone who the idea of devolution can work well. I think the issue will be is if they devolve taxes, but only to go up, which seems to be the conversation at the moment. It's only to put them up. It's not like some US style federalism devolution, where you see, Florida has lower tax and Texas have lower tax rates than California. Yeah. And that's something we haven't really seen so far. It's all been about you can raise revenue locally.
Correct, yes.
You can't look to be more pro-business, to cut taxes, to give a competitive advantage to companies to locate in your area. And I have a sneaky feeling that Andy will suddenly, it'll all be about how actually, no, those things need to be uniform. Those things need to be the same. Whilst you radically devolve, you also want everything to be the same. Okay, I get that. That's my
Kevin,
thing
do you think that if some of the decision making is devolved and meets Andy's expectations, do you think, for example, Devon will have a say on whether what type of immigration policy we have and whether, in fact, any immigrants get housed, for example?
I think certainly I'm someone immigration does, in terms of the border, does need to be dealt with nationally. There's no two ways about that, because I think the worry we'd have, I used to have the rows with the Scottish government about how, apparently they could have loads of visas and everyone would just stay in Edinburgh. They'd just stay in Edinburgh and Glasgow. They'd never think of heading south. But I think where that does need, and it'll be interesting to see if Shabana Mahmood, how much they press forward in that now. I think it's interesting he's kept her, because there was a lot of lobbying from the left in Labour for her to be shifted, but he's kept her, which tells me he's going to push ahead with certain things. But in terms of what we may see devolved, I suspect we won't see immigration areas or housing like that devolved. But what we may well see will be things around transport and others. But again, is this devolving just so that you can raise more tax, or is this devolving so you can actually have make a genuine difference? I think that's going to be a big thing for any future mayoral contest, because they'll be desperate not to, because that removes the advantage for parties of the right. It's to be able to say, like a Florida governor can say, look, I'm going to really fire up business in this area. Whereas
and
here,
succeed or fail.
We can just say,
one of the things I would like to see investment and getting the businesses moving.
Neil, do you want to jump in on that?
Do you think, and this is do you think people are a little bit stupid? And the reason I say that is I actually use the word, he will come into office, he will throw out 3 or 4 or 5 good things, i.e. the £2 bus fare one way, by the way. They remove 5% off the VAT. When is it? December, whenever it is. But then you've got the offset. This going up again, isn't it? I think in December and January. So it's going up. So that knocks out your 5%, if I'm correct.
Yeah, the price cap going up probably knocks out the impact pretty much of your VAT coming off.
Oldest time of the year as well.
Yeah.
So,
and it's only electricity, not gas.
Yeah, it's only electricity, so why not gas?
I can maybe chip in on that, Neil.
No, but so what people, they see these quick little, but it's always next year. It's never now. Well, I know you got to say you got to get it in process, but then it never seems to materialize. So each government says it, and then it all gets forgotten. So to me, these are quick wins to get the votes.
Yeah,
that's my personal view. And I actually said he will come into office. He'll do 3 or 4 rough sleeping, for example. Some people don't want to live in hotels or housing. Some are happy on the streets. But if I remember where he's just come from, it's gone up slightly.
Yeah, he said he was going to abolish it. He didn't. Yeah.
So
let's see how he gets on as Prime Minister. I hope he does, by the way. I really hope he does. I don't want to see people
I'm just talking about where's the money coming from. So another question off the script now. Gary Lineker. You love football, don't you?
Yeah, I love my football, and I'd suggest to Gary, why don't you stick to your football, mate? It's always nice to be lectured by a millionaire who earned
taxpayers' money.
Yeah, and quite a lot of licence fees about how people should be paying more tax and stuff. But I've got some really good news for Gary and all his friends that signed that letter today. Some absolutely fantastic news that they can tonight go on the HMRC website. And they can pay a voluntary contribution. They can lead the way.
Gary,
they can pay the more tax
Gary.
they want to be paying. They feel their tax isn't enough. tonight he can pop on the HMRC website.
I can see
he can make
him-
a
I
voluntary
can see him heading off
contribution.
there now.
Exactly what he would like to pay. He can lead the way. He can send a really powerful message to everyone else.
Go
Got a
for it,
feeling
Gary.
Yeah,
Gary.
go for it, Gary. And if you need a link, drop me a line. I'll send it to you.
Well, I
Michael.
can maybe chip in a little bit about Gary.
You're going to do it
Lineker.
as well, Rob.
Yeah, why not? No, it's real. It's truthful because I did some research on this today, actually. And Ian Franklin will know this, but when a lot of consultants were working for public sector organizations years ago, and then they brought in what's called IR35, which effectively said most employees will have to become employees of the organization they work for. Okay, there's none of this stuff like putting in a Bermuda corporation and getting rid of your tax that way. Well, anyway, so HMR, so Gary Lineker was paid, I think, at least 1.5 million pounds, somewhere thereabouts, by the BBC. And he's also working for BT Sport on top of that, and he has his own company. Okay, and so HMRC took him to court, and they said, "Oh my gosh, you're affected by R35. You should be on the payroll, paying like 45% tax or whatever it is these days." And anyway, he contested that, and he won. So he's shoveling all of his money into a limited company while us poor working slobs have to pay PAYE, right?
We have to be
But
careful about making allegations.
That's mostly the strand of it, but do your own research, okay?
Michael.
I think the problem is that it's same as council. All the councils are the same. We end up with a situation is we sell our assets, we borrow as much money as humanly possible, and when that runs out, what we do is we put our hands deeper into the pockets of the people who are paying council tax. Nothing's going to change. I think the problem is that what concerns me is the cap being possibly removed. Many of the people...
What cap is that?
Sorry?
What, the cat?
The cap.
What is it? What cap?
On council tax on precepts.
Okay, thanks. very much.
What you could end up with is a situation at the moment. Most councils are allowed to go up to 5% or 4.99 cent, as we did last year with Devon County Council. What you could end up with a situation is obviously the parish councils then can put their precepts on as well, because that's the way they get their money locally. But you could end up in a situation where that cap is removed and the council could turn around and say, well, we're going to put it up 10% because we need the money. The problem is you get to a point where people haven't got the money anymore. I've got people in my areas who go to the loo in the dark because they can't afford to put the light on or flush the toilet. This is a real problem. We have to start looking at these kind of issues. And if we're not careful, we're breeding another depression in this country where people just are not going to have money.
Thanks,
anymore.
Michael. Well, this brings us sort of back to Neil's statement before, where I think people will recognize whether this is a win or a lose situation by their pocketbooks, really. If they see council tax going up 10%, 5%, 7%, their water bill's not going down, the electricity, then they're going to, probably not be too thrilled about that. Neil?
Tony?
Yeah, I just want to go back to something Michael said that I find does frustrate me. Devon County Council have to sell and make at least £8 million a year selling assets. And I've brought it up for them time and time again. Once you've sold these assets, you will not be getting them back. That's £8 million a year. Over 3 years, 24 million. There will be a point that we will not be able to borrow any more money, which is coming soon because our assets are going.
Totally agree
Kevin,
with
I
you.
got some more questions here, okay?
Okay.
Mick, all over the internet, there are past tweets asking Boris Sunak call a general election. Should we continue to press Andy Burnham and Labour to call an election to set his mandate? Surely he can't continue without hit this. Has this been done long term in history?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. We didn't call an election when we changed prime ministers in 2022, and the constitutional position is you've got the confidence of the House of Commons, and I think people will clearly debate. And of course, if you, as the Conservative Party found out, if you appoint a prime minister like Rishi Sunak, turned out to be not particularly popular, and it's a couple of years for people to have their say. When they have their say, they well and truly do so. So I think that whilst they constitutionally can survive, I think the issue he's going to have is if he genuinely wants a real change of direction, particularly on budget, and if he does decide to, let's say, want to remove manifesto pledges on things like income tax, which all, if you're going to carry on in this direction spending wise for Labour, it is pointing towards them having to change one of the big taxes, not just do little things around the
Break
side.
their fiscal rules. Isn't
they're going to need a mandate for that.
What I find interesting, I find a lot of this interesting. This is a great show, by the way, Neil. Thanks very much. But
Well, thank Kevin.
Kevin,
and
correct me
Michael.
if I'm wrong, but I think John Healey, who's now the Chancellor, was looking for a measly £9 billion for defence, as if that would solve all of our defence problems. And but there's 58 billion pounds we spend on PIP every year, or something of that, something of that scale. It doesn't really match up too much. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, there's a huge debate to be had about the welfare bill. And, let's remember, actually what Labour were going to do was take 5 billion off the increase over the next Parliament. Not actually cut the bill as in now, but take 5 billion off the increase, and they couldn't do that. And we're seeing what's really worrying is seeing the numbers in their 20s and 30s going on to long-term health benefits, when we know actually the outcome of that can be very poor for long-term life. I think in some cases you're more likely to then actually pass away than you are actually to get a job. So there's a real need to look at it. But I hope that the government does decide to do it, and I hope that if it's the right things, that opposition parties will support. But there's plenty of Labour MPs that just are not up for that at all.
Many people, I'll come to you in a minute, Neil. Thank you very much. Just following what Kevin was saying, I think there are a lot of people that forget that when you put your hand out to Big Brother and take that money, and some give up their jobs actually, or do some cash work on the side, that really can affect your mental health, because it affects your ego, and then you wonder, what am I going to be doing in 10 or 15 years? And it leads to problems. It's not a simple thing of just taking the money, Neil.
Worth thinking. I'm sorry to jump in, but it's
No,
worth
no,
thinking.
carry on.
Sometimes think about. There's a debate about who the real patriots in this country.
Yeah.
And let's start with those who volunteer our armed forces and put their lives on the line for our country. But after that, there's actually a couple of million people we really should be thanking for their patriotism. Because they're the people who every day are getting up and going to work, when actually they'd be better off staying at home on benefits. And that is something which can sound, people think in Italy, oh, that sounds hilarious. But actually, when you think about it, there are a lot of people who are going out doing hard days' work because they've got the pride, the dignity of work, and they want to support their own families. Yet, in theory, they would be better off staying at home on welfare. And that's where we got to a crazy situation where some cases where it's not worth you moving into work, so it traps you in dependency, and others where actually, people feel disincentivized at all. So that's the interesting thing. I was saying it recently, after you got your military, people putting their lives on the line, serving this country, and then after that, you got the people who get up and go to work every day when they could actually be better off staying at home.
I think it's a great point, Kevin. And also, we ought to be thanking those people that make a lot of money that actually pay most of our taxes.
Yeah. Well done,
Instead,
Gary.
we he doesn't pay that much really, but instead we pillory them and say, oh my gosh, they're not paying their fair share. But you know what? Wouldn't it be wonderful if this might be controversial, but think about it. Wouldn't it be wonderful if Elon Musk said, I'm going to relocate Tesla, I'm going to relocate XAI, I'm going to relocate SpaceX into Exeter. And we'd have people flocking to Exeter. We couldn't.
Phil would love that.
People would be making hundreds of thousands of pounds every year down there. But instead, we find ways to criticize people who actually are paying our taxes. Really, we need to praise them and welcome them to this country.
We're 7 minutes over.
Go ahead, Neil.
Michael, we're going to round this up. I've got a couple of things. Tina Beer says PIP should be assessed at their own home. I don't know what your views on that, Michael. Somebody, Douglas, Teambridge becomes part of Exeter. They are flush with cash as their predecessors manage their finances well. We loaned money to other councils and did not borrow. Is that correct? Anybody know? Teambridge?
Well, Teambridge would be part of Torbay. So.
But it's been divided in three ways.
Oh, is it? Sorry,
So we Torbay gets a bit of it, Exeter gets a bit of it, Dawlish and that area, and Exminster and those bits, and then the more to the west goes into the rural
good
area.
Part where all the money is.
So let's round this up. Michael, what do you think of tonight? What do you think generally? What do you think of LGR in a very quick statement? And Andy Burnham's vision?
Well, let's start with Devon. LGR, I think we all agree, is not good for the people of Devon, and that is why we're looking at making a legal challenge. Whether we'll be successful or not is another thing, because it is difficult. I think everybody would agree what's happening to coastal and the countryside is not going to work. We are not going to be able to finance the things. I think we all should remember that PIP is there for a reason. You know, if somebody steps off a curb and damages their back and can't work for 2 years, or even longer, we are a civilised society and we do have to look after people. But I do think that the problem is that if people can't find productive work and they're better off on the dole, there is a real problem to that. But that's a society problem. We need to address that, and we need to be a country that starts producing things again.
Yeah.
And we haven't done that for many, many
Hear, hear.
years. So, yeah. You follow
Kevin,
on.
sir.
Well, what I think of Andy's vision, well, you know, there's not much to talk about at the moment. Let's hope there is. And on LGR, I agree with a lot of what Mike's just said. And, you know, I'm always loath to see money being spent on lawyers, that's for sure. But I think there is debate. It's probably for Torbay, it's been about the best we could realistically have hoped for with the government wanting to expand us. But, you know, there's still a lot of debates to go. And, you know, there's many issues that are not going to be resolved just by changing what council people are under about how you make things economically competitive. But then the final thought I'll give is, and it's really worth hearing about talk about Elon Musk. One of the questions you perhaps you do a future show on it, Neil, is why isn't there any European Google or Facebook? Why all the big tech either Asia or
Exactly.
the US? And that's
Right,
a really
interesting.
quite
Yeah, we
profound
could do a
question.
show on
Out of the
that.
top
You
10
fancy coming on that
global
side?
Yeah, go on, we'll have a
companies.
guess at that one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll
Top
do
10
that.
global
Do my research.
companies, Neil. I think 8 of them are American, and most of them are in California, like Kevin
Yep.
was saying. You know, Microsoft. Well, that might be Seattle actually, but anyway, you name it. Just Google it. It's simply amazing. If we just had one flippin'
One
company, you could take it up in Manchester. I don't care where it goes
That's
in
a
the
good-
country.
We'll bring that on the subject. Yeah, we'll invite. Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh gosh,
Okay,
it's
Tony.
so simple.
Yeah, well, my problem is LGR as a whole, because if an election is caused or done, and they do lose power, then it could be put on the back burner, in which case all the money that Devon, Exeter and all that have put towards this to state their case is completely wasted when it could have been used for much better things. And that's what I find annoying.
Yeah, so you know my view. You know, they can't get their act together now. Why? You know, we should be sorting our own problems out. So Devon County Council is one area. We sort our own issues out. We don't just split it all up and then divide the problem, because all it is spending more money. And like you said, Kevin, to bring every people back into the photo could cost, I heard about 33 million, let's call it 40 million. 80 million to 100 million is a lot of money being loaned. At the end of the day, we need to fix what we got. We don't need to cut it up. But what I was going to say, so I want to put it out to everybody. We're all right talking about it. Right, we need people to give us answers, because nobody's got really good answers, have they? We just say what the issues is. Andy Burnham. But what somebody said, which was Paul, if I remember, the last shot at the saloon or something like that, and what he's talking about, we have elections next year. That's if the LGR goes ahead, Michael. So everybody's job's up for grabs.
So Neil, this is the let's explain it briefly. This is the election in May 2027 for the shadow cabinet.
Yes.
For the expanded Exeter Unitary Authority.
If Kevin
Okay.
explains that, can you explain about
Yeah.
that?
What will happen is next May, the 4 new councils get elected. They don't actually become the council until April 28. So you'll have this little odd period where you'll have the existing county and district still there, still in theory doing their job, but with a new council elected that's making decisions going forward, like, for example, what your council tax bill will be from April 28 and things like that. So next year, big election, assuming the LGR is pushed through the House of Commons and there isn't a legal challenge, we'll be voting for the new councils next year. So, you know, Exmouth will be voting as part of Exeter, Teignmouth as part of Torbay, and Ivy Bridge as part of Plymouth.
I would add on to that is that the simple fact is we've been informed that shadow unitary councillors and when they eventually become unitary councils, is going to be basically looked upon as a full-time job. The allowance that's going to be paid for that is likely to be about £17,000. Now, if you consider that's below minimum wage, my problem with this is that us older farts are, we finish. We've done our lifetime. It doesn't
Kevin
matter.
and I are still disco dancing.
Yeah, come on. Mate.
No, with my knees.
Actually, I'm not actually. The wife will tell me off.
But the thing is that what we're doing here by making these jobs full time and such poor money, nobody of middle age or young age will want to do the job because the simple fact is it wouldn't pay their mortgage, you put food on the table. So what you're really doing is you're penalising everybody and saying it's all going to be old folks. And that is really not the best thing for society.
And particularly, Mike, in the rural area where people have got to travel large distances to get to meetings. Fine, it's like in Plymouth, you can nip in and out. But whereas you're coming from Heartland to go to your meeting, potentially wherever
it takes me an hour and a half to get to Exeter.
There you go.
3 hours a day if I'm coming in.
Hey, thanks,
A
guys.
lot of young people won't do that.
Neil, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, we're going to invite you back on again if you would like to come. See how quick we're actually 14 minutes and 24 seconds over.
When are we on time?
What we're going to actually say is because of what we're discussing about next May, I like to keep this pod completely neutral. So the podcast we do tonight is about general chit chat. So what we're looking at is a separate one, no scripts, no nothing, and it's all about voting. It's about who you want. I can't tell you who to vote for. You can vote for whoever you want, but things need to change. So next year you either vote for whoever you want, but we are gonna, we've got people going out now canvassing, and we just need to get things changed. Kevin, you're going to go to be an MP again?
See, I'm enjoying the work I'm doing at the moment, doing work with GB News, Talk TV, a bit of consultancy as well. A decision I have to make at some point. I still enjoy the politics, still interested in it, but I need to see, what is it we're there to do, what is it will be our goals, and what the opportunity to actually do something. Because I think that was where the Conservative Party went wrong in the last Parliament. Was too many people wanted to be something, not do something. And to be fair to Kemi, she's starting to change that. But
yeah, see, I would vote for the person, not the party.
thank you, sorry.
And if I was in your area, I would vote for you.
Well, that would have been 2 votes, Neil.
Thank you.
But unfortunately, we don't live in your
Right,
area.
and I have to
I
round it up.
yeah.
We're going to round it up now. I want to thank Kevin, Michael for coming on.
Yeah, you've been
Michael's
fantastic.
ad hoc, so
And
he
Michael.
basically didn't know what was going on, but you always hold yourself well anyway. We're going to invite you on again one day.
Yeah.
Maybe not recent, no. We'll see.
Yeah,
he's
we'll
been
see how Badari folk.
Yeah, he might not want to come
See
on.
what abuse you get there.
No, but what I'm saying is thank you ever so much. Guys, we're over target by 16 minutes. So apologies for that. Thank you for Tina, Douglas, Michael, Livy, there's Paul, there's other people on there. It's been a great show. You've been a fountain of knowledge, and I really appreciate you coming on, sir.
No, thanks for inviting me on.
And to you, sir. All right. Anybody want to round it up?
Yeah, I'd like to just thank Neil and Tony for doing this podcast, 56 episodes. And I can't even count on 2 fingers how many you've missed. And it's all about, like you said, Neil, local issues. Oh, my gosh, you're trying to sell some propaganda
No, I'm
here.
not
What
gonna
do you
sell
have
it.
there, huh?
It's cost me 20 quid for you coming on the show, sir. You've got...
Oh, I've got Matt's book. Oh, rightio.
Well, the way
And
you
it
said
might
it,
be
you've
sorted.
already got it.
I will be politer about it than one person was on GB News. I will say that.
And you've actually
Well,
got a
there's no one,
signature.
though.
You
Oh,
should have a signature
wow.
in there.
Ah,
And for
got
coming
Matt's
on,
signature. Oh, isn't
whoever
that
wants
good?
to come on will get a Matt Goodwin book. It
Oh,
cost me
there we go.
20 quid. And do you know what? I want your feedback on it, sir.
You can have 2 if you
Yeah.
want.
No,
Michael,
too.
do you want one, Michael?
I'll give it a try.
Well,
Oh my God, that's
Well, I must
20
explain,
quid
Neil, I
I've
was
lost.
worried you might decide to give me some tickets to watch Exeter City or something like that.
Yeah, I'll
We're not
tell
that
you, sir,
cruel.
before we leave,
We're not that cruel.
don't say that in front of my mother. She's ex-City fan.
Oh,
Since she was 6 and she's 86.
right, okay.
That's it, sir.
Okay, again, thank you, Neil, for doing these podcasts, and thanks for being the host. It's a great topic, and we have some fantastic guests, and we're going to take Kevin up on the challenge. Thank you, Kevin. We're going to have some really interesting topics. I want to definitely turn to how we can raise some serious revenue, for example, and bring maybe one of those top 10 global companies over, yeah? What do you think? And but you can rest assured that we'll see you next Thursday, 6 o'clock, streaming live from our secret underground bunker.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that's
guys,
very
for
light.
watching.
Thank you.
Oi.